The Psychology of Winners Think, Act, Conquer. It's 2013 in the morning. The world is asleep. Somewhere, a future millionaire is studying while everyone else scrolls. Somewhere, an athlete is pushing through one more painful rep while excuses whisper in his ear. Somewhere, a woman who has doubted her entire life is building a future nobody can yet see. And somewhere else, someone is lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, drowning in potential they keep postponing. The difference between these people is not talent, not luck, not genetics. It is psychology, the psychology of winners. Because winners do not simply work harder, they think differently, they interpret pain differently, they speak to themselves differently. They see struggle as evidence of growth while everyone else sees it as a reason to quit. And that changes everything. You want to know the real tragedy? It's not failure. Failure is temporary. The real tragedy is becoming comfortable with mediocrity. The real tragedy is waking up 10 years from now in the exact same mental prison you live in today, still doubting yourself, still procrastinating, still waiting for confidence before action, still explaining away your dreams with phrases like, maybe later, I'm not ready, what if I fail? Listen carefully, the life you want is hidden inside the discomfort you keep avoiding. Every level of greatness demands a psychological death, the death of excuses, the death of victimhood, the death of the weak identity you've been protecting for years. Because winners are not born with fire, they build it, one brutal decision at a time, and the world will try to convince you that success belongs to the gifted. But history says otherwise. The greatest transformations often come from ordinary people who became obsessed with refusing surrender. People who trained their minds when nobody was watching. People who mastered discipline long before they saw results. People who understood one terrifying truth: your mind is either your greatest weapon or your permanent cage. Right now, you are in a war, not against the world, against distraction, against comfort, against your lower self. And every day you delay action, your potential gets heavier, regret grows louder, and your future slips further away. But today that changes. Because this is not just about motivation. This is about rewiring your identity. This is about becoming dangerous to your excuses. This is about learning the psychology of winners, how they think, how they act, and how they conquer. Winning begins in the mind long before it appears in reality. Before the championship, before the business, before the transformation. First comes belief, then behavior, then repetition, then identity. Science calls this neuroplasticity. Your brain is not fixed. It is constantly reshaping itself based on what you repeatedly think, feel, and do. Every habit is carving a neurological pathway. Every action becomes a vote for the person you are becoming. Read that again mentally. Every action is a vote for your future identity. When you wake up early despite resistance, you reinforce discipline. When you keep promises to yourself, you reinforce trust. When you quit every time things get uncomfortable, you reinforce weakness. Your brain is always listening, and most people unknowingly train themselves for limitation. They rehearse fear daily. They practice hesitation. They repeat self-doubt so often that insecurity becomes automatic. But winners understand something powerful. The brain adapts to repeated challenge. That's why difficult things become easier with consistency. Not because the task changed, because you changed. Psychologist Carol Dweck called this the growth mindset. The belief that abilities are developed through effort, learning, and persistence. People with a fixed mindset avoid failure because failure threatens their identity. But winners chase failure because they know failure is data. Failure is feedback. Failure is refinement. The average person says, I failed, therefore I'm not capable. The winner says, I failed, therefore I found another way that doesn't work. That single shift changes destinies. And then there's another level entirely: identity-based habits. Most people focus on outcomes. I want to lose weight. I want money. I want success. But winners focus on identity. Instead of asking, what do I want? They ask, who must I become? Because outcomes are temporary. Identity is permanent. A person trying to exercise occasionally behaves differently than someone who believes, I am an athlete. A person trying to work harder behaves differently than someone who believes, I am disciplined. Identity drives behavior, and behavior repeated long enough becomes destiny. Then comes one of the most powerful psychological states known to humanity: flow state. A state where focus becomes absolute. Time disappears, distraction fades, performance elevates. Winners create environments that protect deep focus because they understand attention is modern-day currency. Most people leak energy everywhere: notifications, drama, comparison, mindless consumption. But winners guard their minds like warriors guard territory, because scattered attention creates scattered lives. And there's another ancient principle that separates champions from spectators: delayed gratification. The ability to sacrifice temporary pleasure for long-term greatness. This is Stoic discipline, the mindset taught by philosophers like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus. They understood that freedom is born from self-mastery, not emotional impulsiveness, not comfort addiction. Self-mastery. The winner says, I will endure temporary pain for permanent growth. The average person says, I will choose temporary comfort and suffer permanent frustration. That is the psychological divide. One mindset builds empires, the other builds excuses. Imagine meeting the person you could have become, the stronger version, the disciplined version, the courageous version, the version who stopped hiding. What would they say to you? Would they thank you for your consistency, or ask why you abandoned them for comfort? This is the hidden pain nobody talks about, the regret of the unlived life, the slow torture of unrealized potential. And this pain doesn't arrive immediately. That's what makes it dangerous. At first, procrastination feels harmless. Skipping one workout feels harmless. Delaying your dream feels harmless. Settling feels harmless. But over years, those tiny compromises become identity. And eventually, you wake up trapped inside a life you never consciously chose. That is why fear is so deceptive. People think fear protects them from pain. But fear usually creates a much deeper pain, the pain of never becoming who you were capable of being. Viktor Frankl once wrote, when a person can't find a deep sense of meaning, they distract themselves with pleasure. Look around. People are drowning in distraction because silence forces them to confront who they are becoming. Endless scrolling, endless entertainment, endless avoidance. Because deep down, they know there is something they should be doing, a calling, a responsibility, a higher version waiting. But facing that truth requires courage, and courage is rare. That's why most people stay average, not because they lack intelligence, but because they lack the willingness to endure discomfort long enough to transform. Meanwhile, winners build strength through adversity. Pain becomes training, rejection becomes fuel, pressure becomes sharpening. Look at soldiers, entrepreneurs, elite athletes. Every champion carries scars, not because life was unfair only to them, but because they stopped interpreting hardship as a signal to quit. Even Jocko Willink teaches that discipline creates freedom, not motivation, discipline. Because motivation is emotional, discipline is identity. And here's the truth nobody escapes. Life becomes hard either way. It is hard to train, hard to sacrifice, hard to stay focused, but it is also hard to regret, hard to feel stuck, hard to hate your own untapped potential. Choose your hard, because time is moving regardless. Every sunrise asks the same question, will you repeat the cycle or break it? Transformation is not built in one heroic moment. It is built in systems. Invisible systems. The psychology of winners is rooted in ritual, because rituals eliminate negotiation. And if you want to conquer your life, you need structure powerful enough to survive your emotions. So here's where it begins. The first 30 minutes of your day shape your mental state. Most people wake up and instantly consume chaos, notifications, messages, comparison. Winners create mental priming instead: silence, breathing, journaling, visualization, movement. They train their nervous system before the world attacks their attention. Ask yourself every morning, what kind of person am I becoming today? That question rewires identity. Winners do not rely on vague dreams, they create execution systems. A goal without structure becomes fantasy. So break your vision into cycles: yearly goals, monthly targets, weekly priorities, daily non-negotiables, and focus on process over emotion. Do not ask, do I feel motivated? Ask, what does the system require today? That is how discipline is built. Failure is not evidence of inadequacy, it is resistance training for the mind. Every setback develops emotional endurance if interpreted correctly. Winners analyze mistakes without emotionally collapsing. Instead of saying, I'm not good enough, they ask, what is this teaching me? Detach emotion from feedback. That is emotional maturity. That is psychological power. Energy is life force. And most people waste it on nonsense, drama, toxic relationships, overthinking, digital addiction. Winners understand that focus requires energy management. They prioritize sleep, movement, nutrition, recovery, deep work blocks. They understand burnout is not a badge of honor. Sustained excellence requires strategic recovery. Protect your mind like it's sacred territory, because it is. Anybody can stay calm when life is easy, but pressure reveals identity. When things go wrong, winners do not panic. They pause, they breathe, they think. Emotional control is a superpower. The ability to remain centered during chaos separates leaders from victims. Train yourself to respond rather than react, because one emotional decision can destroy years of progress. This is the deepest level. Your self-concept controls your ceiling. If you secretly believe you are weak, unworthy, or incapable, you will sabotage opportunities unconsciously. So change the internal narrative. Stop saying, I'm trying to declare. I am becoming. Identity declarations matter. Words become beliefs. Beliefs become actions. Actions become reality. Speak to yourself with authority, not arrogance. Authority, and remember, confidence is not built before action. Confidence is built through action. Every difficult thing you survive becomes evidence. Evidence creates certainty, and certainty changes how you walk, speak, think, and lead. This is how winners are made. Not through magic, through repetition, through resilience, through psychological conditioning, day after day after day. Now listen carefully, because this moment matters. Most people will hear these words, feel inspired for a few minutes, then return to the same patterns tomorrow. Do not be one of them. Information changes nothing without action, so here's your challenge. For the next 30 days, wake up earlier, train your body, control your attention, write your goals daily, keep promises to yourself, eliminate excuses, reduce distraction, face discomfort voluntarily. 30 days, not to impress others, to rebuild your identity. And make this declaration right now. I do not run from difficulty. I grow through it. I do not wait for perfect conditions. I create momentum. I do not fear failure. I fear wasted potential. That is the psychology of winners. Accountability matters too. Tell someone your commitment. Track your progress publicly or privately, because what gets measured gets strengthened. And when setbacks happen, because they will, remember this, the goal is not perfection. The goal is relentless forward movement. One disciplined day at a time. One courageous decision at a time, one battle won internally before it is ever seen externally. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That strength already exists inside you, but strength unused becomes weakness. Potential ignored becomes regret, and time does not wait. So this is your decision moment, not next Monday, not next year. Now, will you continue negotiating with mediocrity, or will you finally become the person your future desperately needs you to be? Because winners are not people who never feel fear. They are people who refuse to bow to it. They think differently, they act differently, and eventually they conquer differently. If this message spoke to something deep inside you, share it with someone who needs this reminder today. Subscribe for more transformational content designed to sharpen your mind, strengthen your discipline, and awaken the highest version of yourself. Your next life begins with your next decision. Make it count.